Hello, welcome to the Boss It podcast with Mark Edwards and Michael Humblett. This podcast is released every week and is an over-the-shoulder look of a frank and candid discussion between two experienced software executives, providing you with useful tips, techniques, and the latest concepts to help you grow your software business in the fast-paced digital age. So let's get into it. Here is Mark Edwards and Michael Humblett. Another Boss It podcast.
Hello, Mark. Another Boss It podcast. How are you?
Good. I've got a bit of an admission to make, though.
Oh.
I've got a confession to make to you.
Confession is better, yeah.
Yes.
Tell me.
I've been doing a bit of moonlighting while you've been away.
Well, as a non-native speaker, I do not understand that word. I mean, I guess what moonlighting is for me is something either with liquor or it's like pulling your pants down and showing the back of your front, right? Do you know, completely on a side note, every year there is a list published with the most stupid deaths. And on number one, a few years ago, there was, listen to this, they found a wreck of a plane, a little small plane, and they found two young guys in there, both with their pants on their knees. And it took them a few hours to figure out what happened. And what happened was another pilot came in and he said, you know what happened? I'm flying in my Cessna plane and suddenly I see next to my wing another plane and I see two guys pulling their pants down and showing their bottom cheeks, or how they call it. And suddenly I see them dive down. So they lost control and they crashed the plane.
I love your phrases. I mean, what was that you said to me? It's either somebody taking alcohol or somebody showing them their back front. Did you say?
Yeah, so I do it with my kids. I have to explain stuff. I say, is it the front of your back or is it the back of your front?
No, I didn't. So I didn't do anything to do with alcohol or showing the back of my front.
Admit, it's like really nicely phrased, right?
Yeah, it is. I love these. We ought to create a little book, perhaps. Michaelisms, okay. We call them. No, what I was actually doing, I did an interview with James White. Now, James White, he'd previously been a shareholder as a founder of a company called In Touch, which was a CRM business. And I'd known James for quite some time. And actually, I was a guest on one of his podcasts a couple of years ago, and I had a conversation with him the other day, and he was talking about the mistakes that he's made in starting that business. And I love it when people are open enough to say, I've made some mistakes and I've learned by them, because so much, sometimes you meet people and you think, wow, super people, they've never made a mistake. And I think you learn a lot. You learn a lot through making mistakes, and it actually proved to be a really interesting conversation. So I think it's episode 25 now. So we're now jumping on to 26. I didn't want you to think suddenly, what's happened to 25? I thought we were on 25. And you find out somebody else had appeared. Because he's co-author of a book as well called Sales Genius.
So you're basically telling me that after all these months of hard work, you've cheated on me.
Well, yes, it does feel a little bit like that, yes. I did mention you, and he said, I've never heard of him. I'm sorry. I've never.
Really, really nice of you.
Yeah. No, but
just send him to YouTube.
Yeah. The book comes out, I think, next week, and there are some free copies to whoever responds the quickest when we finally post the podcast. So it's going to go up. There's going to be a link to the book, but we're giving away 5 copies. We're giving away 4 copies because I'm keeping one of them. So we're going to give away 4 copies to the first person.
Just to understand, Mark, you mean your book or
no, James's book?
James's
book. My book, I couldn't give away 5 copies of my book. No way. No, it doesn't come out to November.
Money for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it starts at £100 minimum, and that's if I like you.
Yeah. God, that's how our relationship is going to go forward from now.
No, I did mention you. I was thinking of you at the time, and I think there were some good points that he brought up. But actually, the main part of the conversation was about his experience in the software industry, and I really liked it because he was very open. He admitted he'd made mistakes, and some of the things that he was saying are points that we've made on these podcasts in the past, about focus and so on, and how that really affected him. So it's an interesting podcast, and I think for listeners listening to this, and you didn't listen to that one, it's worth going back and having a listen. He's a nice guy as well.
So, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it with pleasure.
So what have you been up to? Have you got anything to talk about this week?
So it's been a very busy week. One thing that struck me yesterday was I talked about this company several times already, a company called Sweetbright. They make SaaS software for real estate brokers, so they simplify the administration. And in the beginning, they struggled with their positioning. So in the beginning, they positioned themselves, let's say, pretty low, as in I'm just saying something, I don't know the exact price, it's something like £50 per person per month. And then they went for the companies that had like 3 to 7 users. And then when I was there, we scaled it up, and now they've completely rechanged their pitch again to much bigger companies.
Could you just say the company name again? It didn't come out very
Sweetbright.
Sweetbright.
Yes.
.com. BRIGHT or ITE?
Yes. GHT.
Sweetbright. I'm going to have a look at that while you're talking, actually.
Yeah.
So tell us about Sweetbright.
Yeah. So interestingly, one of the things that always comes back to me at a certain stage is company selling a software is adding some kind of form of service, right? And especially when you think about if your goal is to become a true platform. So think HubSpot, for instance, like a marketing automation platform. Think Salesforce. At a certain stage, you need to integrate lots of other tools, because if you are the platform, you need to be able to connect with all the others. That's one, and that's a big challenge. And number two, because you're the platform, you fundamentally have change management with your customers, because they have to adapt to a new way of working.
Yes.
So I always try to cut out and carve out as much services as possible and basically focus on the software sales, and then have other suppliers or say build APIs and let others do it. And they actually went the other route, and they said, no, we're gonna try something else, because we see this change management. It is actually one of the big problems that we see. So we want to be the true experts. We want to be the one-stop shop. So they added a lot of services within their sales process. So within their sales process, they say, okay, this is software. This is the problem it's going to solve. But on top, we have a team ready to help you with your change management, and we'll take you from A to C with 3 steps. You can't do everything in one go, and they actually put a price on it. It had an immediate impact in the way they were closing deals. They are actually closing deals much faster.
Are we talking, because of the company I'm looking at, they're very specialized and they're providing a platform for real estate agents?
Exactly.
Okay.
These are the right guys. Yeah.
One app to run your agency.
Yeah.
Is their tagline.
So it's a platform. Huh? So if you have one app, it means you need to connect to hundreds of other systems. But I find it very intriguing that they made the decision of adding a lot more services. In essence, professional services, in essence, to help the companies they deal with to go through that transition. But if I think about it, if I think to a HubSpot, they actually also have tons and tons of professional services sitting there. And in the beginning, you need to scale that. So I was really intrigued by the story, and because I always wanted to carve it out. So I'm basically saying I might have been wrong in the past. So I'm looking at it again with a fresh mind and thinking purely from a sales tactical point of view, it does make a lot of sense. Because when you buy, you go through, I call it attention. People need to notice you, then trust. They trust you because you're an expert or social proof. And then the third part is always what I call structure. You need to be able to say 1, 2, 3. Mark, it's like you. You say, with Boss Equity, we have a process called EVA, and we do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. It's going to make your life easy. Structure gives peace of mind to people. So that's what they're doing. So they added the piece of professional services.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the website now. They're talking about a fully digital journey, and as you say, it seems to be the interconnectivity with other applications is a big part of their strengths.
That is because you create a lot of speed. So you have all the silos. If you connect them all, I mean, think HubSpot. HubSpot is marketing automation. So what do they have? They have the landing pages. They have the SEO kind of stuff around it. But they also added CRM. So they're basically being a platform. You connect, and then you connect all the other systems around you.
You've actually jumped onto a subject there that I think we could spend the next 3 podcasts talking about. It's a massive subject, which is that interconnectivity. Because if you think about it, you were at the seminar. Was it last week we were doing the seminar in London? Yeah, last week. And actually, because we've been involved in this industry for some time, sometimes you don't necessarily see it as it really is because you're totally immersed in it. But it's a fairly immature industry when you compare to sort of engineering or a number of other, even airline industries have been around longer than the software company is. It's still fairly immature, which means that what you tend to see is the pace, fast change, because there's so much there that can be innovated, and it's moving very quickly and it's picking up in pace. So there's lots and lots of change. And when I can remember back into the 80s and 90s when companies were jumping on board and seeing IT as being their savior of being able to do so much. I think there was a bit of a hype in the fact that I think people realized that it wasn't quite as easy as they thought, didn't deliver to quite the extent that the just designing the processes and what they needed to be able to run their businesses more effectively, whatever that is, it worked in silos. And I think that we've had that type of solution, and we are now on a, I hate to use this phrase, is a cliche phrase that comes from America about the tipping point. But I think it does apply in this circumstance, is that now we're moving into that connectivity. There's a very good book by a Professor Schwab, I think his name is, which is called The Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
Very, very good. And it's about the networks, it's about the technology that's available. It's about all of those bits of technology that are currently being overhyped to hell. And by the way, software tech companies don't lead on that. Data analytics, RPA, AI, all of that. That's been done so many times, and that's a short-termist approach. But I think what is genuinely happening now is that the APIs and connectivity is a genuine solution that can happen that much more quickly than in the past. And that really starts to generate some genuine power for businesses. And what it enables you to be able to do is to see what's going on within your business and to be able to have real insight and control, and then be able to make decisions about how your business runs in future. And of course, all solutions are about increasing efficiency, lowering costs, providing better customer service. How many software tech businesses have we seen that are talking about that? But we now are at that point where the technology starts to come together more as a whole rather as silos. And the other thing is, do we now need those really long implementations and lots of outside consultants to be able to do it? As things get easier, and they will, it will be solutions that will be able to be implemented by the people within the business that actually know the organization. So you don't have to bring in somebody who's going to spend 3 months getting to understand what your business really does. It can be designed by people who know it, who live it every single day. So your business here, Sweetbright, they seem to be on a trend that I can see really happening out there.
They are doing really well also.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good to see. Love that.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those industries that needs a shake-up. That needs to, it's so old school, some of what things they're doing. But he mentioned some, intriguing things. For instance, one of the things you see in the real estate world, and to talk about business models and integrations, is you also, by the way, you have the same in UK. Is you have these platforms where you can post a house, and then you have on one side all the brokers posting houses. On the other side, you have people looking and then trying to buy. And the way they monetize is they ask for a fee, or they ask a certain percentage of things you do. Now, most of these real estate brokers, they're all there. But if you really think about it, the really advanced ones, they just post it on Facebook. And sometimes they've sold their house even before they go to the distribution platform networks. So actually they're starting to cut out because they don't like them. So because they're taking money for some. So they're basically starting to cut them out and go straight to the end user.
Can I say something negative about SweetBright?
You can, yes.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
I just, and this is only just looking at it for a few minutes. I think that they've done well because they're just, this is just looking at their website. Obviously, I haven't looked at the rest of the marketing and what their key marketing messages, but they seem to have pulled those out. And it's a fairly simple website. You know, it's none of those sort of 200-page monsters with lots of acronyms on. But it's fairly forgettable.
Their branding and designing is pretty good, and don't forget.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about branding.
They only exist. It's a startup. Startup moving to scale up.
Yeah.
They don't exist so long. It's a very high converting website also. Something I learned, it's not always the most beautiful ones, so I give them some credit.
I don't think anything wrong with the design. I think the branding in the colors, it's modern, it's uncluttered, it's clean. I just think they need a cohesive narrative to run through that to make it memorable, because it's a lot of bits of information they're throwing at you, but they're very close.
Yes,
and it'll be
you might
working,
be right.
sure.
They're very close. It's a tuning thing. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Good stuff. It's good to see that. I wanted to talk actually because it sort of links from what you're talking about there, and it also links back to the conversation I had with James White about failing, and talk about Slack. So, have you used Slack?
Yes. I have a lot of my clients use Slack, so they open channels and they put me into that, and I've basically started refusing because I was in like 30 channels and I was following everything and I was going nuts. So I know how it works. It's amazing. They scaled also with a classic domination strategy. I let everybody use it, very engineering, but I like it a lot. I have to say one comment, Mark, to be not negative, but Slack is not really my thing. I mean, I'm just still faster with other tools than Slack. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that they would probably say then they've got a solution and no solutions for everybody. But I think what we can say about them, and this is what this podcast is about, is what Boss Equity is about, is being successful in the software industry. They've done that. They have been successful. It's not the end of the journey for them, but they've done exceedingly well, because I don't know if you know about the beginnings. I think the co-founders of the business, James Stewart and Cal Henderson. James Stewart, I know pretty sure they were involved in gaming. That's where they started, and they failed. They actually spent years creating games and trying to relaunch them and trying to get the success. Didn't work. Kept trying, didn't work. And then they actually decided that they needed to try and do something completely different. And they used some of the knowledge and some of the skills that they had, and they created Flickr. Are you familiar with Flickr? I mean, I am. I'm a photographer.
Yeah. The picture, that's what you use for your pictures, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought when that, I don't know, I can't remember when I first started using it, but it would have been fairly early on. That was the best platform for photographers worldwide. There was something. I mean, I remember that I think they had 6 billion images up on that platform at one time, and I mean, it was amazing because throughout the world you had people who were perhaps taking photographs on their iPhone and they wanted a place to store them to share with their family, to top professionals, top amateurs, some really talented new photographers who were sharing their images, interacting with other photographers. There were thousands of groups, if not millions, I don't know how many there were, on every subject that you can think of within photography. And it really was a learning platform. Nobody was near them at that time, and a tremendous success. I don't know when these two guys sort of stepped back and moved on, but it was bought and sold a number of times. Yahoo was involved, and I think they had other focus, and they stopped innovating. I still use the site, but
It's true, nothing changed. You're
no,
right.
people drifted away. They were dominant within the market. I mean, I can't remember what the valuations were, but they were successful. So they'd created dominance with a
Yeah,
platform that was really working. It was providing a service. People were paying to use it. It must have been generating money. I think it was
yeah.
sold to a company that didn't have the focus. They didn't really want to invest. I also believe that some of the people that were really at the heart and really understood their market sort of drifted away. They didn't necessarily understand their customer.
Hmm.
And now, well, it's not dead. I still post, but people have drifted away to Facebook. There's 500 pixels. There's a number of other sites. Whereas
Hmm.
Flickr could have continued that domination, and it could have been such a different story, really would. But
Yeah.
it came down to the lack of innovation. Now they've moved on to Slack and another success. So really impressed to see what those guys do. Hey, it's probably similar to yourself. I've tried Slack. We didn't stick with it as an organization because we'd learned to use Skype in,
Hmm.
in a way that worked for us.
Yeah.
And I think if I was choosing today, I'd go with Slack. But because we
Probably because of the integrations that you can fully automate, which is just not possible with Skype.
no, that's right. And I think that the way that you can present information to each other, I think for development teams, I think that Slack, great product.
Yeah.
But they are a success. I mean, I think the last I'd heard, 10 million users a week on that platform,
Yeah.
maybe more
That's
than that now.
that's good. The one thing that I always find amazing is now they changed that thing. But if you would go to their website a few months ago, they just had one page. They had one
Yeah,
small page. I find it amazing, and it just said like one sentence, and then a bit of an animated graph, and that was it. Amazing, crazy. I'm always talking about landing pages, CTAs. It's just that's
what's
it.
a
Very clear value prop.
I mean, the thing that I'm always interested in, and I'd mentioned about our unicorn, our Unisys white paper. I think we're just
Hmm.
publishing it Monday, but we're all looking at those really successful smaller companies and the most successful unicorn companies, and we're pulling out the common denominators. If we're looking at Slack, okay, what are the key things from your perspective? Why have they been successful when there's many other collaboration platforms and solutions that have
They
failed?
they came from a very engineering angle, right? They came from a very engineering angle, and it's a free tool. So they did the domination strategy, so everybody can use it. And I think when they started, they did something nobody else did. It was very. I remember when I first saw it a while ago, it was almost coding. You had to know code, and
Yeah.
you had to do all these really complex, for me, complex things. But for coders, they thought it was easy. So it really started going from bottom up. It was a real bottom up approach. Secondly, I read a whole story about Slack perfecting their user interface. So
Yes.
they were crazy on their user interface, and they spent, and then you say the gaming industry comes to play. They
Yeah.
spent years actually perfecting that one, and A, B, C, D testing. I actually think there is a book of Google that talks about sprints and the way you set up how Google was built, and it actually talks about Slack, if I remember, how they did so much work on the interface.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and that's one of the things that has come out of our research
Hmm.
is that interface really crucial,
Yeah,
and I think that you use the right word, perfecting.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know people good enough, it's good enough isn't good enough. You've got to perfect that. That is so crucial. It's one of those key things that you've got to get right, and I think because of their background in gaming, that interface it is so critical. And I think the other point is, so they would be very, very good at designing that interface because if you don't get that right in gaming, you're nowhere. But I think the other
Hmm.
thing is they designed a solution for themselves.
Yeah.
But they needed it, and who do you know better than yourself? It's
Yeah.
about that depth of understanding. So they would be a couple of things definitely that I think was part of that success. I think you also have to have the right solution at the right time. There is a timing element to that. And then you need to be able to articulate it to your target market very effectively. But I think, especially in the early days, to establish themselves, they knew who they were targeting, which was people like themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think they did really, really well.
Yeah, so James Stewart, Calla Henderson, well done. Congratulations to you. You've made a success of that. Maybe we can get them on our podcast.
Yeah,
Maybe we should invite them.
Just invite them, see what happens.
Yeah. So what else have you been up to this week?
I've visited a lot of people. I spent a lot of time filming because HubSpot phoned me and asked me to make. They asked me if they could use one of my videos for a worldwide email campaign on personalized video. So I had to get into motion and fix some stuff on my web. I am building a new website, so it's not live yet. And you know how it goes. Deadlines move, and you're like, okay, I need to fix it. But now I said, no. If they send an email to so many thousands of people, that website needs to be live. Yeah. So I spend a lot of time with thinking about content, thinking about call to actions and color scheme. You know how that goes. Like it's tough, I think, but it's very rewarding at the end because you make something. By the way, Mark, it's something very weird. My father was a painter. He was an artist. And all my let's say up to a few years ago, I always felt like I'm not doing real work. I'm not creating something. I was just selling a product, or I call it selling air sometimes.
Do you think visually?
Yes, completely. Very in visuals. Yeah.
I think you've got an advantage. That's my theory. I have this theory that people that think visually, they sort of chunk information, and I think it can give you a big advantage when you come across complex subjects. I think a lot of people, they become overwhelmed by detail and complexity. Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting. I had a conversation earlier this week. This was more from a financial perspective, and we were really looking at what needs to be achieved with this business. And it always seems to come back to the same thing, which is simplify it to make it understandable.
Well, if we jump back to Slack, I just opened the website and it has one sentence: where work happens.
Yeah.
It's so, because it does so much, it's so simplified.
Yes, absolutely.
So to finish the story, I always felt like I'm not creating, I'm not making something. And it's only since I started my own business and since we started working together and since I'm doing these websites and these producing content and movies that I, for the first time, feel like it's like I'm really making something. Strange, huh? Strange how your mind is wired sometimes differently, while other people would say, hey, you have a very nice career, you're a VP of sales or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not making something. Strange, huh?
Yes. Yeah. You want to create.
Yeah.
I think that's very common with a lot of software entrepreneurs. Is one of the motivators is that they're wanting to create something. And I think that's really important that they understand that about themselves. I come across a lot of founders who are perhaps less than enchanted about their business because they feel that they're no longer doing that creative stuff.
Yeah, indeed. Could be. Yeah, and they go very unhappy.
Yes, can do. Yeah, and I think that's that point that make about hanging on to the business too long. It's got to work for you. And I think if it doesn't work for you, it probably doesn't work for the company, and the employees will suffer when you lose that passion.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. You need to feel like you're creating something.
Yeah. It took me a while to understand that it's in play, and I need to make sure that whatever I do, it has an element of creation in there. And creativity.
Talking about creation, I think I mentioned to you a few weeks ago about the company Funnelytics, which is Funnelytics. Their website is .io. So
It's
Funnelytics.
funnily or funnel?
It's a hard one to say, actually. It's the only thing I could probably say against his business. Funnelytics. Yeah,
Funnel ethics.
Funnelytics. So funnel
.eo.
YTICS. So FUNNELYTICS.io. I've been having a look at this business and it keeps popping up for me. We have researchers that are always sort of looking out into the marketplace for businesses that fit a certain criteria. So we're looking for promise. I'm really quite impressed by what I've seen with these guys so far.
Really?
I think it's quite a young business. But just go and have a look at their website. I mean, when you start, we're talking about simplicity. I've learned a little bit more about this company, so I'm even more impressed. Starts with Map Better Funnels. And what they're offering is actually a free end designer tool. So for marketeers, and I know the issue around this, marketeers that are looking to set up a flowchart, for instance, and to be, because it can become quite complex when you've got multiple processes. They're offering that for free. I believe that the market that they're going after is the Richard Brunson ClickFunnels.
Yeah, I wanted to say, so you have some players in that space, where one of the bigger ones is ClickFunnels, but you have. So what you see, by the way, if we talk about that space, because it's a space that intrigues me a lot.
Yes.
Not only do I apply a lot of the techniques, I explain a lot of it. I believe there's enormous untapped potential in that space.
Absolutely.
If you look to, for instance, everybody knows MailChimp, right?
Yeah.
You want to send out email sequence, nothing too complex. Started with newsletters. Suddenly they are adding landing pages. You can now build landing pages because it goes hand in hand, of course. It's the same thing, an email landing page, whatever you do.
Yes.
And then you see the landing page builders, for instance, a classic one would be Lead Pages, Unbounce, Squarespace. I mean, you have several of these ones. They're now starting to add email functionality. It's funny, huh? But if you then look to the platform you're talking about, they start combining it. It's like a light version of a HubSpot or a Marketo, which are the full-blown, heavy-duty marketing automation systems.
Well, look at what ClickFunnels did. I think it was really smart. So they looked at what was happening regarding digital marketing and what were the problems that digital marketeers had. And we go back to APIs and having lots of bits of technology that you had to try and piece together in order to be able to manage and control and make decisions about what you were doing in your marketing. And marketing is all about testing. You have to make some decisions and you have to set up a process and you have to be able to monitor that and you have to be able to measure it and test it. Well, it was quite difficult because you're using lots of bits of different people's technology. And what ClickFunnels did is, first of all, they came up with a great name.
Yeah.
ClickFunnels is a great name because it creates a visual image. So you start to see this funnel and people just clicking and moving down the funnel. And that concept that, I don't know how much that added to their success, but I would think it's a major part of it. And then if you look at their marketing, they were attention grabbing, they were different, they did lots of video. It showed a bit of individual character. It was mainly focused around their CEO, Richard Brunson. He wrote books, so it was another way to get out into the marketplace to show credibility. Some of the videos you could say, well, that looks a bit amateurish, it's a bit shaky, it's him on the run. I don't think, a lot of people, they don't mind that, but it showed an individuality, and there was you felt that there was a genuine aspect to that business. It was consistency. I think people will put up with flaws if they see it as a flaw. Many people won't. if it's consistent because you know what it is. But I think a lot of technology businesses, they don't seem to have any personality. You don't see the people behind them, and it's very inconsistent because there's no real narrative for that business, and you've got lots of different people having an input into it, and you end up with this cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. Yeah, you're right.
What does it mean? I don't understand. And something you don't understand, you're not going to engage with. But
No.
ClickFunnels really did it. Now this company has come in, has probably seen the success, because ClickFunnels are one of those unicorn companies. And by the way, they did that in a few years without outside funding.
Yeah.
Really grew fantastically. And now this company's come in. Really interesting what they're doing. So they're leading. They've got it very simple. If you look at it from the website, you could think it's just a design tool, but it's not. It's far more than that. But it's enough to get you hooked in and engaged. So well done to whoever was behind that.
I need to play with it, Mark. I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, I should have a go at it.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot with ClickFunnels.
Yes,
I tried a lot of tools. I do a lot of ClickFunnels. I like his book, actually, .com Secrets. It's very B2C, but I believe, we talked about it many times, I believe B2B is changing to B2B2C because you're selling to people within companies. But he really walks the talk. So I love the strategy. I love the way. The one thing I don't like is he funnels everything the whole time. So even if you're in the software, you get hit by upsells, clocks that tick down, and games they want to play. I mean, after a while, I go really nervous. I'm like, don't do this all the time, right?
Too much.
Yeah, unless you probably buy everything he has, then he leaves you alone. Although I think there is always something to sell.
He'll come up with something else, I'm sure. But as you say, he walks his talk, so that's a good thing as well.
Yeah.
Well, so, I'm just looking at the clock. We've been going 36 minutes.
Good God. Okay.
Doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, Mark. Then let's call it a day.
It's a good idea. Yeah. So thanks for your time today. As always, this is Boss It Podcast. Love to hear your feedback, questions, whatever you want to hear. Come back to us. Give us some feedback. It's always very useful. And thanks very much, Michael. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Thank you, Mark. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.